Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back, or welcome to another Bangs audio review. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I don't do too many of these comp videos because honestly, they're hard. But I think I've got a pretty cool one set up for you guys today. So it's going to be part review, part comp between the 7Hz 5 and the ivipQ Shanhai. We'll go through specs on both really quick. There's no unboxing for the ivipQ. When you order it, that's how it comes. It comes with the cable, the one set of ear tips, the IMs in this, and a plastic wrap, to protect it from moisture. So yeah, really no unboxing there. As far as the 5 goes, it's kind of similar to some of their other sets. Not as nice as probably the Timeless or Timeless AE or Aurora or any of their more expensive sets. But basically, whatever. There's a case, and they're actually, you know what? Luckily, I've got the tips out, so I'll just grab those. They have some interesting tips in there. In addition to sort of standard silicone normal bore, they have these cone-shaped guys, and I was really excited to try them. Because I thought maybe they would be like a good fit with my eardrums or my ear canals, but they weren't. They did the same sort of floaty thing. I'm not sure if this seal is gonna stay that the M100 tips did from EPZ. So really nice, slightly tacky, a little reminiscent of the X Elastic, but not that tacky. Interesting shape. And might work really well for some of you guys out there. They just didn't work for me. So that was the one thing of note with the unboxing of the 5. The other one is well, there's two. They did a lot of different things with this. The case is not a hard case. It's soft, so it's rubber, I guess. I don't know if that technically is going to make it waterproof. I wouldn't sort of test that theory, although I'm sure it could take a splash or some rain, but not full immersion. Don't do that. I guess you could test it without the IMs in it, but interesting. But no crush protection here, so it's going to be something you're going to have to pay attention to if you're grabbing it on the go and throwing it in your bag, or I guess in your back pocket. Yeah, it's not going to protect the IMs from experiencing damage if you sit on them or put something on them that's too heavy. So interesting there. It's kind of between a couch and a case in that respect. And then the other thing that is interesting with the 5 is that they went back to this ribbon cable that they used with the Sonus, and I'm not sure if they used it on other sets too, but they, the Sonus I had actually ended up giving it away to a really awesome postal worker as a sort of a thank you. He always comes by the house with his music playing, and he listens to good music. And I said, "Hey, do you do the earphone thing?" And he was like, "Well, I've got like Galaxy Buds, or I think that's what he said." And I was like, "Here, try these out. They're wired." So I threw him that little inexpensive deck that I got. That's like a deck and a charger through the Amazon Vine thing. I think it's normally like $15, just so you have something to hook it up to. And the Sonus was finished, terminated in 3.5. So I was like, plug that into your phone, because he had an Android. Plug that, plug the earphones into that. Tell me what you think. And he loves them. Just the Sonus, he loves them. He's like, wow, this is so much better than anything I've ever tried before. So 7Hz, they do good stuff. The Timeless, still one of the benchmarks for a planar magnetic set. Even 4 years ish later, still considered to be one of the best. And then there's the AE, which I haven't tried, but I hear is like maybe possibly even, I don't know, you want to call it better. It's just slightly differently tuned than the original Timeless. So yeah, they've got pedigree, and I appreciate the fact that they went with try to do something different with the 5. And the 5 is 5, literally 5 dynamic drivers. They're all 6mm, 5 per side, and they're all in their own acoustic chamber, which is very interesting. So in the 3D printing, they actually put a chamber in for each of them. Okay. Speaking of specs, frequency response from 5 hertz to 40 kilohertz. Sensitivity on these is 105 and impedance of 12 ohms. You can select either 3.5 or 4.4, and that is now available in the Sonos as well. So even though I'm not a real big fan of the ribbon cable, I think it's a little gimmicky, at least you do have the option, and of course I opted for the 4.4. So yeah, sorry I didn't get to the unbox, but it just wouldn't cooperate with me today. Get that one out of the way. On the other side, the ivipQ. This is the IQ14, aka the Shanhai, not Shanghai. Leave that G out when you're looking for it. Shanhai. Comes in this definitely protected case. So, there's the continuum cable. Comes with this really nice, because ivipQ is a cable company, so it comes with not a top of the line cable, but a very, very nice cable of theirs. And nice shells. Yeah. It's definitely a difference in aesthetic. You know, the ivipQ's got that sort of shimmery stuff in there and swirls. And then 7 hertz looks, you know, straight up metal with a nice pattern on it. If you guys could see those okay, I hope. So, you know, aesthetically, maybe you prefer one or the other, maybe you don't care, but they are pretty different in that respect. The ivipQ has two 10mm dynamics and a 6, and this is how it's configured. It's a 10 and the 6 handle the low to mid frequencies, and then there's a 10 separately that handles the highs, which is interesting. I don't know if that makes it better or worse necessarily in configuration, you know, 3 versus 5 too, but it is interesting in that respect. So cable, you know, 2-pin, so is the 7 hertz, and termination on this guy is it's a commitment, so it's 4.4 only. It's only available in the 4.4 termination. Of course, that, you know, shouldn't stop you, because most people have a 3.5 terminated 2-pin cable kicking around, or 10 of them. So, you know, if you've got one spare and you only are in 3.5 land, shouldn't have a problem, because it is just a straight flush 2-pin connection, which is the predominant one. On the fit and finish, obviously we went over what they looked like. I would say that, you know, they're both 3D printed resin. It's just that the 7 hertz has sort of a metallic, or at least aluminum faceplate on it. The shell is, you might imagine, with 5 drivers, and it is on the bigger side. It's not gigantic, you know, but it's definitely bigger. And so people with smaller ears might have an issue with comfort over long periods of time. On the other hand, the ivipQ shells are just a little bit smaller, but they're a little bit deeper, interestingly enough. That could be that the 10 and the 6mm drivers are in coaxial configuration, and then they have to have room for the other 10. So not exactly small shells, but I did find these shells to be more comfortable for longer listening sessions, just from a physical standpoint, from a fit standpoint. So that's about where the similarities end with these two, because they vary quite a bit in sound signature. And interestingly enough, the ivipQ has some sub bass rumble to it, whereas the 5 is a bit rolled off. And let's get into the graphs, because there's, you know, definitely some discussion to be had here. So let me bring up the graphs. And there is a third set, which I'm going to name later. So there's actually 3 sets in this graph. The blue line that you see is, oh yeah, that's the secret set. All right, so green is the ivipQ. We're looking at 10 hertz to 200 hertz right here. So we're looking more in the, like, this is more mid to sub bass. I'll show you the rest of the graph in a minute, but I thought this was interesting. Orange is the 7 hertz 5, and you can see where they cross is right about 25 hertz, where the 7 hertz picks up and has more mid bass, and the ivipQ, the Shanhai, does not roll off as quickly in the sub bass, but has a little bit less mid bass to it. Both of them are very satisfying. You know, coming off of the sets that I had done recently outside of the T2, the brighter sets, the brighter leaning sets, like the Yukimi, sorry, and the Alba. It was refreshing, if that's a good way to put it. It was refreshing to have sets that were more bass focused, I guess you would say. So I enjoyed them a lot. It was a really nice to sort of go back to more of my personal tuning preference. I don't have to try as hard to like find good or bad things to say, honestly, because it's just easier for me to assess things that are more tuned to my liking. And there were good and bad things to be said about both sets, especially when you bring the third mystery set into the equation. Because as you can see, mystery set has much more sub bass and has just as much mid bass to an extent. It keeps up, once it drops off a little bit, it keeps up very well with the 7 hertz. So let's bring up the full graphs here. It's interesting because, let me take mystery set out so we only have 2 to look at. I did post this comparison in the community. 7 hertz is orange, the green is the Shanhai. And you can see, like, this is a holy shit valley right here. You know, it is a V-shaped set. To the point where it does get recessed in some vocals and isn't as clear or concise in the mids as, obviously with that graph you can see why, as the Shanhai is. The Shanhai to me is a more balanced overall set with good satisfying mid bass and decent sub bass, whereas the 5 is just basically all about the mid bass. Now I understand you get this up here and you're looking at some peaks and stuff, and yeah, that it does clean it up a little bit, but not as much as you might think. Not to bring up the Hades again, but honestly, like, this is what I was hoping the Hades would sound like, because it's good. I mean, it's not great. Trust me, it's not great, but it's good. You know, it's good for a Super V shaped set. You're gonna get all the mid bass you can possibly handle. You know, so for things like hip hop and electronica and some reggaeton, it was very, very enjoyable to listen, very satisfying to listen to. On the other hand, the Shanhai was also enjoyable and satisfying to listen to, but could play other genres without a problem. So, like, as far as overall all-rounder goes, the Shanhai is just a much better set. Okay? I'm just going to put it right out there right now. Balance-wise, versatility-wise, engagement-wise, like, it's just... You can favor any part of the frequencies and you're going to be okay with the Shanhai. You have to love a lot of mid bass to like the 7 hertz 5. And I think this is probably why that all of that hype died off after the release, because people either didn't want to talk about it because it wasn't as good as they were hoping, or maybe they did, but their, you know, video review wasn't like promoted or pushed up heavily. Because it honestly is a disappointment. I mean, it's the 5 is, it's a $150 set, and for $150, I mean, aside from the unboxing, which is underwhelming, aside from the case, which is underwhelming, aside from the cable, which is honestly gimmicky and a pain in the you know what. Well, I've already sworn in this video, so it doesn't matter. If I had spent $150 on this set, I would have been pissed. I think I would have sent it back. In fact, I'm sure I would have sent it back. As it happens, I didn't, thankfully. And this was just me. This was no, like, super discount for the reviewer kind of situation. This was just me being patient, being smart, and utilizing what I had to purchase it with, which was, first, a discount from the seller, which I will link in the description if you're interested. It's not on discount, it's not on sale right now, but just, it was down to like $115. I had a coupon because it was during a sale on AliExpress that was like $12, and then I had like coins, and for some reason it was like 6 or 7% off in coins. My out the door price, my price shipped on this was like 93 before tax, because the tax rate here is 8%. Before tax, it was 86 and change. And for that price, like, I'm not too miffed. You know, I mean, I'm not going to listen to this set a lot, but if I just need a hit of bass, and I don't want to play around with the hi-fi and the bass boost on that, if I just want to like plug it into a dongle deck and, you know, crank out some hip hop, I can go to this set, and it's going to be good. You know, it's just that it's very specific use case for me. I bet it would be good for mowing too, now that I think about it, because it's probably going to be pretty good for isolation, especially with all that low frequency. But yeah, $150, a tough ask for this one, because it's just not like the ivipQ Shanhai. On the other hand, conversely, retails for $65 when it's not on sale, and I think it was just either a shade under or a shade over $50 when it was on sale. And that is a really freaking good deal, even without the box, even with, you know, a mediocre selection of ear tips, which it is, you know, just black silicone normal bore, and they work fine. But you know what, you're going to use your own tips anyway. So I threw on, these are the, oh yeah, Final Type E. But most of my testing was done with the Divinus Velvet normal bore tips, and they sounded freaking fantastic. I just threw the Final E on there because I was using the Final E on the 7 Hertz, and that was like the best way to listen to it. For some reason, it just kind of cleaned it up enough. So if you end up wanting, you know, if you're bass head through and through, you end up wanting this set, and you can get it for under 100, like I was able to do. The best tips for the 7 Hertz definitely by far are the Final Type E. After trying everything from Osla Crystal to, you know, some other wide bore, to the TRNT, to, you know, everything I've got basically, because I wanted to try to get something out of them that wasn't just bass. And the Final Type E tips actually succeeded in that as I put them back on. Yeah, so we have a recommended set. That's the Shanhai triple dynamic driver for $65 or $66, less if you get it on sale. We have a set that I'm not going to recommend. I can't even really like strongly recommend it for under 100 because it's so specific for its use case and its genres. And I don't like the accessories, so there you go. Here, let's enter the third set so we can wrap up this little shindig. The set that I preferred over the other two, because, well, I put it in there because it's, what do you think it is? It's a triple dynamic driver set. It's the RDR1. And the RDR1 really showed its stuff in comparison to these other two sets. Now, it wasn't like head and shoulders above the ivipQ set. Like, I like the ivipQ set almost, like nearly as much. But the thing is, let me put this graph back up for it. There we go. The thing is that, let's take the 7 Hertz set out so we can just compare those two, is that it has as much mid bass for the most part and cleans up better into the mids, and then has a little smoother ear gain, and then maybe just, it doesn't get the peak here, but I don't really care about that peak. It's just kind of like swishy up at the top, and I don't really care about that. I don't care if I hear that or not. It's the sub bass and most of the mid bass that the Artie rules on. And actually, to me, like, this isn't too much recession in the mids, and it's a smoother treble, and it's just a smoother set, and it's more satisfying and thicker and fuller in the bass, but the bass still does clean up, and it's got a nice, you know, ear gain and release into the treble. There's nothing about the RDR1 that I don't like. In fact, it almost maybe just a touch brighter than I gave it credit for when I first reviewed it. I think I called it like a, you know, night vision goggles or something. It's not really dark. You know, it doesn't really lean dark. What is dark is the 7 Hertz 5. Believe it or not, even though it has all those jagged peaks and stuff, still feels dark. And it still looks like it's giving you the finger, which is hilarious. So yeah, and the RD is right around the same price. The R1 is maybe a little bit more than the ivipQ at times. I think I got mine for like 53 or 55. So let's call it ballpark. You know, it's about the same price as the Shanhai, and I just like it a little bit better. You know, I think pound for pound, it's just a little bit more satisfying experience, especially if you love bass. I will recommend the Shanhai though. I think it's a really good value, honestly. So if you want to experience a triple dynamic driver, you got your choice here. More balanced, go for the Shanhai. A little bit more bass and still well balanced, you go for the R1. And if you're nuts about the bass and don't really care, and want something that's better, significantly better than the Hades, then you can go with the 7 Hertz and try to get it on sale. Don't buy it for over $100, please. There's no reason for it. So yeah, there's your review and comp. I had a really good time doing this. Actually, it was not as hard as some of the previous ones that I've done, but maybe that's because the tuning on these sets was pretty easy to decipher. Oh, and let's do one last thing with like stage. As far as the head stage goes, the 7 Hertz had the least, the RD had the second least, and the ivipQ had the most. And I think that is to do with the fact that it just is a little bit brighter leaning than the R1, just a touch. So I give the stage was really nice and immersive on both of these sets, and not so much. There's another knock against the 7 Hertz, is it didn't have a really like big head stage either. Yeah, did I cover everything? I think I covered everything. So 1, 2, 3 for me. It could be 1, 2, 3 for you, but I don't think, unless you're, like I said, bass and nothing else, even though it has a little bit else, the 7 Hertz is really a very specific set for a very specific listener. And that's going to do it for the day. All right, be careful, be safe, be nice. Love y'all. Nothing but peace to you. And we will see you soon. Oh yeah, the Tipsy Speak at 260 is going to be next. All right, see ya.